today. We'll wait just a second here while we get let some additional folks jump in. Um, we have a lot, as usual, that we want to cover. My co-presenter, Dr. Jenny Lawler, is here with me, and we're really excited to spend some time with you today. You will know about us if you've ever been on a webinar that we are informal. We love conversation and chats, things in the chat as well. And so please feel free to engage as much as possible. We don't usually pause for questions, but if we see one in the chat that is worth stopping and answering right in that moment, we're happy to do that. All right, so we'll just get started. This is the team that is working today or presenting today on the webinar. I am Danielle Varda, our founder and CEO at Visible Network Labs, and my co-presenter is Dr. Jenny Lawler, who is our Director of Data Science and Insights. She is an incredible network scientist. What you'll see also joining us are some of our developers and product folks, and our partnership and marketing person, Alex Durr, who you probably get a lot of emails from. So really happy to have folks here. But now that I've introduced us, we love to just spend a second to see who is in the room. And we like to do it a little bit unusually. We ask that you just answer the Mentimeter just so we get a sense of this little ecosystem that's come together right now. So we wonder who you are, and if you could add a couple of things in here. We're not just interested in your job title, but also kind of how you identify, like a mom, a painter, a climber. I might ask, or what I think I'll do real quick, I'm going to go ahead and take this and put it in the chat so I can come right back over here and anyone who missed it. There we go. So if you missed the actual, there we go, slide and QR code, then we will be able. Okay, here we go. We do a lot of live demos and things. I never know if it's going to work. So thank you all for doing this. I think it's worth spending just a second to kind of see. You all are really showing up. Amazing. This is an interesting, we collect data. I used Gardener oh, I didn't use Gardener in the prompt. That's what I usually put in there myself. So I'm happy to see so many gardeners here. That's me as well. All right, we have cat moms, program officers, connectors, golfers, community promoter, community conveners, and community advocates. Wonderful. Outdoor adventurer, lovely. An early riser. I love it. All right, so we are definitely more than our job titles. So we love to kind of have a moment where we get to kind of be who we are, even if it's just in a little word cloud as well. So, oh good, a lover of networks. We are also, so we are in the company of friends here. Okay, I feel free to keep doing this. I'd love to know who the kayaker is. I've been a competitive whitewater kayaker some of my life, so I would love to connect with you as well. All right, well, let's keep going. Thank you for just spending a little time here, letting us know who you are. But in the chat, we would love it if you actually put your job title, maybe why you're interested in networks, where you live, those kinds of things. We're always aware that the people in the room are probably collectively all of these things than we can be ourselves. So very happy to have you all here with all of your skills and passions for network building. Okay, all right, let's keep going. What we're going to do today is just do a little bit of overview of thinking like a network scientist. Our hope what we have experienced and what you all have told us are the pain points, the challenges in the world of ecosystem building and collaboration. We want to talk about how we use CPRM, which is Community Partner Relationship Management, as a tool to help address some of those pain points and some case examples from our own work. We'll want to hear from you to know what pain points we missed and then what we can do to get together again in the future to talk about some of those things. So welcome to those of you who are brand new to us at Visible Network Labs. And we have some old friends here that we're really happy to always see as well. All right, so I'll just give you a little bit of background on VNL. Our roots are in research. Jenny and I both came from research university backgrounds where we have been studying social connectedness and its influence on outcomes, whether at the community level or individual level, for many years. But what we have realized is that when we can make these things visible, there's just so many advantages to that. And so just having an aha by seeing the world and of connections around us is something that has brought great joy to us and the communities that we work with as well. We are a social enterprise. Our mission is to strengthen social connectedness for better outcomes. We do that through technology-based data and mapping tools. So we want to share that with you today. So we're technologists. That's why we have developers on our team. We do learning as trainings and workshops, and we just really look for opportunities for collaborative innovation. So our approach is very engaged and collaborative with everyone we work with. We believe we have good strengths and skills, but when we work within community, we believe the community has the other part of the expertise that makes it all kind of make sense. All right, so before we get into solutions and data or technology for how we might approach these things, we like to share a little bit of what we call thinking like a network scientist. So again, if some of you have been here before, then you'll see a little bit of this. But we find it really important to really talk about the why of doing any of this. Why would we collect data? You know, why do we want to go through all that trouble to work on visualizations? Well, there is a foundation that our team works with and that we really use that guides us. We do this work because what we have seen is that almost everyone across all sectors is engaged in what we refer to as the network way of working. This used to say a new paradigm, but we don't have that anymore as a slide because it's really a norm. So whether you're in the public, private, or nonprofit sector, it's very likely that part of your work today is bridging across sectors, building partnerships. And you might have gone to school to become an epidemiologist, but you're not just doing epi anymore. Now you're asked to go out into the community and do new work where you are meeting with others. So there's just a really strong belief that if we connect across boundaries, in network science, we even call this the strength of weak ties, that we will learn things that we don't know from others who might know different things. We might get access to new populations that we don't have access to and things like that. But the problem is it's kind of expected that we just do it because we're humans. And my big aha in thinking like a network scientist for you is that you already are a network scientist because you're a human being. And as human beings, I believe our primary work that we do all day long, every day is build and manage relationships. And as humans, we just do that naturally. We learn how to do that for ourselves. But in our work environments, we're also expected to do that work. And there's really kind of a concept that because we're humans, we can just use our gut instincts to do that. Well, that's really challenging, I believe, in my own personal life, much less at work. So what we're trying to do here is support people who are trying to do this work of network leadership and ecosystem building by giving you the tools and some data points to build a data-driven way to do this kind of work. So, and one other thing I love to talk about briefly is how I've been doing this work for about 20 years. I started as a graduate student studying networks, went to the RAND Corporation as a policy scientist. and then started building technology and came back to the University of Colorado. During all this time, people were not really thinking as much about systems and networks as we do today. But I just really always have felt this, that COVID was a really pivotal moment for us in the network science and system science space, because really overnight, we all kind of became network scientists. Network science became the universal language. I was talking to my dad about his, who he was going to connect with, what were the costs and benefits of different connections. And I told, he's an 83-year-old German man, and I was telling him all about how this is what I do for a living, and still didn't get it. He's still like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. But it made me really realize that there was like a real shift. So for all the tragedy of COVID that happened, the appetite for people today to understand networks and systems is unlike anything I've ever seen. That has presented an opportunity for us to do more of this work where our partners around us both understand these maps. These maps came from the New York Times when we were talking about when there were articles around COVID. So this science of network is more mainstream than it ever has been, which is why we think this is a really great time to combine this kind of data into your everyday work. So I say networks a lot. So I just wanted to find them before we go too deeply into this work. We call collaboration, collective impact, ecosystem building, we refer to these as networks because we measure them. So there are 3 types of data that we collect and that you'll see we use to kind of address some of these pain points that we're going to talk about. So the first one is really these nodes. So this we refer to as a member list. So who are the members of your network? You'll see that we actually refer our data architecture or ecosystems built of networks of networks. So within networks of networks and ecosystems are your members of that ecosystem. So in a network framework, those are referred to as nodes. They can be organizations or they can be individuals. And we know people make up organizations. So lots of ways to categorize that. But basically they show up as these little nodes in these visualizations. The second type of data is really the relationship between the nodes. So those ways in which they connect. So it can be that we just know they're connected. So we might say, do you know someone? More interesting is when we add some context or a valence to that. So we may say, well, what do you do together? What are the activities you do together? What's the outcome of that relationship? We might be interested in like levels of collaboration between folks or even perceptions of trust and value. So we're going to talk a little bit later. This is one of the pain points we want to talk about is like, how do you know what to measure? How do you know what we need to collect? The third type of data are the attributes. So you'll see a little key over here. These colors mean something. They help us explain the patterns and understand where we might want to leverage certain types of partners and things like that. So that a node is connected to a lot of others is interesting, but that they have certain characteristics is also interesting. So we collect those 3 types of data, and you're going to see that appear kind of throughout this. And then we use all of that data to answer questions. Like we just might want to see who's connected to each other or who a key player is. We might want to look for redundancies or gaps. So 3 things you can do. 1 is tell the story of your network. 2 is link your work on network building to outcomes. And the third, which happens the most in our experience, is using the data for quality improvement. So to create action steps and strategies. So how do we look at what we're seeing and then build an intentional network strategy that gets us closer to the outcomes that we want to see? All right, so I'm just going to do one. I mentioned I was a professor at the University of Colorado, and I teach collaboration across sectors. So this is the only thing I'll do, which really kind of goes back to theory, but it guides us at Visible Network Labs with every project we work on. So I like to share it. So real quick here, if you look in the center of this slide and see all the nodes, the squares and circles, let's imagine that those are all organizations. And in every picture in each phase, they are in the exact same spot. So the only thing that's changing in these pictures are the lines between them. So let's say we have a great idea and we want to put a network together. Our funders have asked us to build a collaborative. Legislators are legislating coalitions. So from all angles, right, we're getting asked to do this work. So what happens usually in phase one is we bring together all the people we know doing the work, and we'll always make a list of who's not already at the table. And then in phase two, we invite them. It might be the very next meeting. At the end of that, we send emails out. This is the nature of network building. We believe in bringing diverse sectors together. They're going to bring us an advantage. Where our team at Visible Network Labs meets most communities is right here in phase three, where the strategy is growing. When we meet folks, we're not trying to convince them that this is a good approach. They are already doing it. But what you'll see is that they've often designated some backbone organization or a primary organization that's kind of leading everything, facilitating, probably tracking data. Maybe they don't know what their role is. We're cooks in there. There are some struggles that folks have with the strategy of more is better. And so what we have seen is that it's very difficult to continue to maintain this effort at a level that is actually effective. So what we work on with folks is collecting data that will allow us to build an intentional network strategy with a couple of core principles I'll talk about. So what you'll see here in phase four is not the only way this group could form, but let's imagine that this group now has divided up into 4 different work groups. We have seen a key to a sustainable network is the decentralization of leadership. So decentralizing that backbone organization into different core responsibilities, maybe leadership of subgroups, shared facilitation, shared decision-making, these kinds of principles in the work that we do tend to keep sustainability more likely. We also suggest giving everyone in the network a role they understand and only requiring them to participate when they're going to use that role, and otherwise letting them know it's optional. Now, the problem with that is that FOMO, fear of missing out, is so big in communities that people feel if I don't go to that community meeting, I'm out. I'm in the out group now. So we have to make sure that we are leading with a really good communication structure that allows people to trust the process, know they're getting all of the information that they need, and really to allow us to do kind of less, tell them we have less expectation that they're coming, but they are going to be a key member, an important member of our network. And so let's say this group meets weekly, but this one monthly, quarterly, and yearly, and maybe we come together once or twice a year. So what we have learned at Visible Network Labs is if we can use our data to create an intentional network strategy along the principles that less can be more, our communities feel a huge sense of relief, because what we're doing when we do more is better. We're also creating some big inequities, because we may have a very small organization with just one employee and they're invited, and then we have big organizations with lots of employees and they're invited. So doing is we're asking small organizations instead of direct services, for example. So what we need to do is we need to be able to leverage networks for collaborative advantage without necessarily overwhelming our communities with the resources required. So what we have found is that in a structure where we're using the data to actually do less collaborating with the same collaborative advantage, people are relieved, they will stay longer, they'll be more engaged. One other principle I didn't mention is we'll often suggest that you discuss what the end of the network is. I guarantee you, most of the people in the group, everyone we work with, their networks are perpetual. We don't really have an end in sight. But if we know that we're going to end this work when we reach 3rd grade reading outcomes, or, when everyone is housed, these are big goals. But, in some ways we need to talk then, should we shift? Or should we just maintain arm's length so that we can activate this network when the next big problem comes? So these are just really quick tools from network science that don't require any real technology. It's just a way of thinking to help you kind of think about some of these pain points. Then if we can add data to it, and a tool, we believe that actually it kind of takes it to the next level. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we use, so we are technologists at Visible Network Labs. We build different tools for people to do this work. So we're going to talk about the partner CPRM, and CPRM is a community partner relationship management system. And we use that term with real intention about kind of what this means. So we know that in like the marketing world, people are using CRMs, customer relationship management systems. And that's how they manage all the members of, or all the people, clients that they are selling to. And the framework of a CRM is to convert people to paying customers. That's not what the people that we're working with are doing, but we have similar needs. We need a place to put all of the information. We need a place to track. We want to see change over time, but in an ecosystem, it can feel very complex and confusing. So we have built this structure of CPRM, which is a play on a CRM, but really it's meant to build and manage relationships with ecosystem partners. So for the focus of strengthening, optimizing networks, using your data to do that work. We believe that having this kind of tool takes you from working on it with your gut instinct, to building some kind of data-driven strategy. And we have built our CPRM, and we believe CPRMs in general should be built on a couple of key principles. So the first one is community engagement. We believe deeply that we should build technology in partnership with the people who are going to use it. We call this human-centered design also, with community capacity in mind. So we believe that all of this should be in service to helping communities build their capacity to use technology and data and science, not to hold it at arm's length from them. So we encourage, while you're using the platform, to open it to as many people that would be interested so they can also build capacity. And towards that end, we believe strongly in the democratization of data. So if we take data from community, we believe we should give it back. Community members spend endless amounts of time answering surveys. So we try to really use the words of not we're studying this or we are doing a survey. We talk a lot about building a tool together so that we can, we'll engage people by putting their data in and then engage them by letting them take the data out. So we'll show you a little bit of that. We think that this addresses a lot of the pain points that we've been feeling. All right, so this next part that we're going to go through is how to use the concept of CPRM to address these pain points and challenges in ecosystem tracking. So Jenny and I are going to work on this together. We do have kind of we have a tech solution, but again, like beautiful pictures don't mean a lot if we don't understand how to use the data. So Jenny's going to do the interpretation, and I'll be able to show a little bit of the tech that might be a good tool, an accessible tool for you all as well. So we identified what we have found to be the 4 main pain points that our partners and community talk to us about. And no surprise, it tracks with what we've built because we've just tried to be informed by the people who we work with. So the first one we're going to talk about is tracking and managing members. Almost everyone we meet says to us first thing, like, sure, I have a list. It's in a spreadsheet, or 5 of us have 5 spreadsheets and it's all kind of everywhere. And even more familiar probably is like, it's all in our heads. So we know that lots of people are doing great community building and ecosystem stakeholder engagement, but it's very hard to just kind of get a handle on it. So we're going to talk about member management first, and then just being able to capture information or more data about them to understand a whole ecosystem. We kind of want to know, like, where are they located? What is the data that we can collect that tells us who they serve and more different things about them. And then just being able to see aha moments, insights, and then use that data for decision-making and action steps. And then for this last part, we know that people struggle with, okay, great, I've got all this stuff. Like, how do I share it back? How do we build collective capacity? Because us as keepers of data give us power. It doesn't necessarily build strength in an ecosystem. So how do we actually get to the end here where we really push the limits and say, how are we collecting data, but how is it strengthening the ecosystem around us? All right, so I'm going to just dive into these one by one. So the first one I have here is tracking and managing members in an ecosystem. I'm going to be switching a little bit just back and forth. So what you'll see here is I'm going to go into our platform and kind of show you the tech side, and then Jenny's going to show you how this shows up after you've done this work. But one thing that we would suggest to everyone here, if you haven't already, go ahead and register. What I'm going to show you right now is just a free part of our platform. It's to address the big pain point of member management. We know not everyone's ready to dive deep into tracking and visualizing networks, but we are pretty sure everyone needs a place to put their members. So if you register, you'll be able to put your member list in there with all your attributes. And so I'm not going to do a huge demo here. You can sign up and do that with us another time. But I will share one thing with you just to cover some ground. I'm showing you something here called the Jeffco CPRM. It's an actual CPRM that's been built out for organizations in Jefferson County, Colorado. The Colorado Gives Foundation has been the funder of this, and they asked us to build a tool that is completely public facing. So this is a tool for the whole county, which is why I'm allowed to show you all the ins and outs of it here. The amount of publicness that you build into something like this is up to you. There's features that I'm very proud of as technology builders that we have put in here that reflect our values in community building and engagement, but you don't have to use them. But what you'll see here is that just very basic, there's a place to put all your list of members. In this particular instance, these members are all listed as organizations. And within each one, I always go to the Arvada Chamber. Once all the information is put in here, it kind of just gives you a place to look at and see that one organization. So you'll see there's other contacts in here. This shows us that this organization is a member of a survey that we sent out, a subnetwork. You can take notes. So you can treat this as a place, and this is like the free part of our tool that's just lets you come in here and keep track of everything. You can filter on all kinds of different things based on the data that you put in here. Whoops. And I will show you just really briefly, you can add members one by one. Down here in an attribute library, you would build out a whole set of attributes so you can come and tag your organizations. They're unlimited. You can add additional contacts. Very exciting is you can put an address in, and we have an API connection to ArcGIS so you can geomap them. But most people will actually not start with one by one, but will get a file ready and import the whole list. And once you do that, what we'll show you in just a moment is that you will be able to just see a whole summary of all of your data that allows you to just look at all of the different attributes that you have in here, and it doesn't require you to really do anything else than just keep your list updated. So this is really nice because it allows you to have everything in there, but have a little bit of analysis as well. So I'm going to switch back over. Jenny's going to talk a little bit about what that looks like when you have all of the information in there as well.
Thanks, Danielle. So what can be really great about putting all this data in one place and getting it organized, especially in a tool that supports analysis, is that we can start then to aggregate and disaggregate our data and start to see, where we might have strong coverage, where there might be gaps. That can help us think about, who might we need to invite to be part of our work, who might be missing, or where are we well represented, and maybe we want to help those people take a break. That we're asking too much of a certain sector or group, for example. So you can see some of the data that you might pull out as things like, folks very commonly will track what are the issues that organizations are working on that they partner with. So here is one breakdown that we used in that Jefferson County project. And you can see we have tons of folks in workforce development. We have very few that deal with things like domestic violence and child welfare. So this is a tool that can help organizations then like reflect on how is our network doing? Is this the composition of people? Do we have the right people at the table for the work that we're trying to do? Next slide. Likewise, we did, especially for this group, we did a deep dive into folks that do workforce development. That was one area of special interest to the community we were working with for this project. So we were able to dig into, the specific types of workforce development that organizations provide. And when you treat that as an attribute, you can code all those organizations in a network by, where they fall into this work. So again, we see, lots of folks are doing employment or workforce development, a few more in coaching career supports, but not so many in talent acquisition. So again, kind of gives us a chance to reflect on, is that the right group of people for the work that we're trying to do here? Where might there be opportunities to make adjustments or think about how we invite different folks to the table to participate in the work that we're trying to do?
So this is probably one of the just kind of more simple parts, but what we wanted to share with you was that we understand the main point of just like, where do I put all my lists? And let you see that like there's not just a place to put stuff, but once we have information about the members of our ecosystem, we're already learning. So we can already start to build our action steps or strategies based on just what we know about those members. So without going any further, which is really the area where you start to really invest more time and work, there's a really kind of sense of relief for people to be able to have that together. And so you could do all of this in a spreadsheet as well. So we just have seen over and over, the very first thing that almost everybody is thinking about is that member list. We have lots of tools and resources that actually that you can find online, and Alex can probably share even here, that help you think about like, what are the boundaries of your network or your ecosystem? This is a huge, complicated question. For some people, they have a list of all their members, but for others, this is an enormous kind of conundrum that we're thinking, like, where are the boundaries of it? How far do we go out? An ecosystem is very complex and multi-layered. So what do we want to include in there? So we have resources to help people think about that as well. So the next pain point that we see from people is they're like, okay, now I've got this list. How do I just get more information about them? So what we see are a lot of people like using a SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics to collect that data. And so what we've tried to do to address that pain point is put the ability to collect data in the same place as your member list. So you are not managing multiple folders and files and importing and exporting data, which can be as complicated as managing your ecosystem. So the folks, our partners that we usually work with, are in community and they're not data analysts. And so what we're trying to do is help people think about how to address this pain point without necessarily having to hire an analyst or do that kind of work on your own and manage that all as well. So what we have done here is created these different libraries where you can put in all kinds of information. So for example, we have a question library that allows you to put in all the questions that you may ever want to ask the members of your ecosystem. And here you can actually add any of your own questions, just like a SurveyMonkey, but also we have provided relational questions, which are the questions that allow you to connect the dots in the network maps, and also the non-relational questions, which are just more typical kinds of questions that we know people ask. But we've made it kind of as easy as possible to allow you to be really flexible in how you collect data. This question is asking who from your member list you want to collect the data from, and then what questions you want to have them answer. So this allows you to build out your networks of networks. So I'm really proud of the way that we've thought about the data architecture. So we know that people have ecosystems that are built of these networks and subnetworks, and then managing all of the different ways that we learn from them and about them is difficult. So this allows you kind of to do that work, see who's in your subnetworks, kind of work on the survey as you would survey monkey, where you and consent and skip logic, and schedule emails. So we talk about inviting people to engage by having different ways to put their data in, and then also to have their data come out. These email templates are built down here in one of the other libraries. So makes it really easy kind of, again, to manage that complexity where people are like, I've got ecosystems and networks of networks. How on earth am I going to collect data from them? And then there's also the ability to be able to import secondary data. But Jenny is going to talk about what you measure. Like we always get asked, great, we can ask questions. What on earth should we be asking? So I'll let Jenny take it from here.
Yeah, and like Danielle said, in terms of measurement, the sky is really the limit. You can evaluate anything that you would want to ask people directly to tell you about. But when we do this work, we tend to break down the types of things that we measure into four sort of categories. One is those interrelationships. So how are people connected to each other? What are they doing when they partner? Just the basic kind of structure of engagement among members, right? That's the initial kind of connecting the dots. But then we also ask people questions about those partnerships and about their relationships. So we'll ask what we call either contribution or attribution questions. Those help us to understand, where did these relationships come from, right? We might ask, did this relationship form because you were participating in this network? Did it form because you met this organization through another partner or something like that? And that really helps us to see, especially when we're treating this new network as sort of an intervention. We're trying to change the landscape of partnerships, evaluating, is that the case? Can we say that our partnerships are a result of participating in this network? Can be really powerful. We also ask questions about perceptions, and especially in the relationship context, we'll ask people about their perceptions of how much they trust their partners, how much value they get from partnerships. And that can really help us to dig in and understand, from the perspective of network members, what are the strengths of our network and where might there also be gaps or opportunities for us to continue building. And then finally, we ask questions that help to understand the level of agreement among members. So those might be things like, how much do members agree about the goals of the work that we're doing in this network, or in this ecosystem? And so we might give folks questions that have specific goals or objectives that we're working on. We might ask them to either rate or rank those goals or objectives to see, to what extent are members of this ecosystem in agreement about the work that we're doing. So altogether, these things can help us to see, how is this network, how healthy is it? How is it developing? How much do folks trust each other, find value in the work they're doing? And also things like, how successful do we perceive it to be? How are our outcomes looking? Do we need to make any adjustments? You can switch to the next slide. And I want to just give a few examples to make this a little bit more concrete. So one type of question that we find to be really helpful across lots of different communities is asking questions that help us to create a resource inventory, especially right now when we see, lots of groups are seeing changes in the resources available to them, and we need to look to others in our networks and in our communities to figure out how we fill gaps. Having questions that figure out where resources lie and where there might be opportunities to do some matchmaking to help people make the most of the resources that we have in our community can be really powerful. So this is one example of a way that we might ask this question, right? We would ask people to tell us, what can your organization contribute? And then we will tailor these response options to the specific setting. Now that first question just gives us kind of that basic overview of who has what types of resources. But then we often will ask this follow-up question to understand, we call this our Goldilocks question. Is it too little, too much, or just right? In terms of how much these resources are available in our community. And then we can start to see, folks are really looking for X or Y. Yeah, you can move ahead. And then an example of that attribution would be here, asking people to describe how their relationship with a partner responding to that looks like. We'll see different options for where a relationship is developed, and then a row for each partner, and respondents can just select how they were connected. And that gives us then a distribution that we can use to point out, oh, this network is actually having an impact on the relationships among members. We're able to see change, and can be especially powerful when we measure things like this over time and we see how the relationships in the network can build or strengthen as members participate. And then finally, we have our trust scores. So that's another one that we can just briefly touch on. And we use this as actually a 3-question scale where members rate their partners in terms of how reliable they are, how much they share a mission, and also how open to discussion they are. You can go to the next slide. And then, we can aggregate these across all the members of the network and see, how are we doing in terms of trust overall and the specific domains of trust. But you can also look at this at the level of individual organizations to understand which ones are perceived as being highly trustworthy among members, or which ones maybe, they might be really well connected, they might be in a leadership position, but nobody trusts them. That gives you, a really important and powerful vision for maybe how we move forward, and where there might be a need to develop either build trust or figure out what's going on if somebody is not quite getting trusted, isn't trusted by other members of the network.
Okay. Third pain point, and with all of those are just all examples. We have a template that you can start with to have a bunch of questions in there. We know most people data points are things that feed into that and insights and planning is where the next big pain point comes for folks that we work with, and they're like, great, I don't know what I'm looking at. So what we've tried to do is just create a space where you can take all of these data that you have been collecting and inputting to basically come over and see it all. So I am going to go through this so quick because the purpose is not to actually share every part of this right now. But basically, you'll see at the top while this is loading that there are network maps, GIS maps, network scores, charts and tables, and then a whole summary over here that you can look at. So for example, if I go to the network map, so what's happening here is any question from your question library, attributes from your library there, and then your member list is all getting fed into here. So I can just look at nodes, and here I have it sorted by the primary sector. I always like to start with nothing, but because this right here is pretty confusing. Once we have data, we get to see views of it. And because we've done our work to really figure out what kind of data we want in here, we can really start kind of exploring. For example, here's our early childhood group. But also, so all of the attributes that we pull in or questions that folks answered are over here, as well as different ways you can see like who is the most connected, for example, or insights like who are the key players in this network that I'm looking at in these different kinds of ways that we categorize them. But we also might be interested in, so here are all of the questions now. So this is, if we say, describe how the relationship was developed, we can start looking at different types of relationships with this group of partners in early childhood that I'm looking at. But down here, if I say, these are all the ways, all the activities that they're doing together, but I'm really just interested in client referrals. So again, how you set it up will help you do this. And then you can also start to, bridge across sectors and groups to look for like bridging organizations. If I look here, I see that this is Triad Bright Futures and they're very well connected. If I click on their eyeball, I'm going to go to what we call their member profile. A member profile we'll talk about at the end is a way to kind of see all of the information about this particular network member. But also just here, the GIS maps are pretty awesome because now we've included all of these base layers from census data to county health ranking data. We I have the API connection to ArcGIS, so it's live and we can bring in other base layers and be able to explore them as well. So a lot of people want to do that work. We have network scores and charts and tables. I always say this is the place where you see like your regular data, but my favorite thing is being able to do crosstabs where you can basically see different things about the networks that allow you to heat map, do a little asset mapping and things like that. Okay, so Jenny's gonna walk you through some of the ahas though, because again, it looks great in a tech, in a platform, but what does it mean? Oh, you're muted, Jenny.
Oh, thank you. I think this is one of my favorite things about network science is that we can identify key players in our networks. We can start to see, based on the structure of relationships, who occupies an important role in the network. And this can be really important along the lines of what Danielle was saying earlier about, we want to avoid this idea that more is better. And when we start figuring out who are these strategic or important players, we can tap people at the right time instead of just asking everybody to participate all the time. So we break down our key players into several different types here. Each of them has a different way that they contribute to the network, and some are really helpful for things like getting information out. Some serve as brokers. Some just have a lot of connections in the network, right? So that's sort of, if you think of like social media, who are influencers, it's people who have a lot of followers. So the kind of starting with that can be a really helpful tool to like figure out, who can we tap to help solve different problems. But we also often bring together multiple questions in our surveys to kind of find key insights. So going back to that resource question, here's one that we saw lots of folks saying there was not enough advocacy and policy change in this network. They felt like we needed more of that resource. Almost 50% of members said there was too little. But what was interesting was that also about 50% of members said that that was a resource that they can bring to this network. So that it kind of had us all sort of scratching our heads that this was actually a fairly abundant resource in this network, but yet lots of people perceived that there wasn't enough of it. So we needed a little more information. And then we looked to our network where we had actually asked everyone to tell us about their partnerships, like who are you working with on advocacy and policy change work. We see, again, sort of lots of relationships in here that involve some aspect of this. But then we also looked at, which organizations say that that is really their, like the primary thing they do, like it's their number one resource that they bring to this work. And there was only one organization in the whole network where that was kind of their primary thing that they do. So, this helped us to kind of start to see in this particular community that maybe what we needed was actually a little bit more leadership to organize this advocacy and policy work. Not necessarily that we needed resources everywhere. We needed everybody to be doing more. Lots of folks were doing this and had an interest in it, but there were very few that could make that their primary effort in the network. And in this case, that organization that did this work was primarily focused on a specific topic that might have been relevant to some of the network, but maybe not everybody. So we saw that there might be a gap there that could be filled.
Jenny, I'm skipping this somehow. There we go. Okay, and the very last pain point, thank you, Jenny, that we're going to just quickly go through is that we talked about. So once we're making sense of all of this, it's still overwhelming. So how do we actually put it into summaries that we can disseminate back? So this part of translating the data into practice, especially for diverse members, is really important to us. It's that part we talked about that we really believe in, which is giving data back. So again, not going to do a big demo here, but in our share section, you'll see that we have dashboards and then these member profiles. So what we do is we build out basically public facing dashboards that are just summaries of the data. So as we're exploring, you can capture what you're looking at and it goes into the visualization library. And that allows you, we've built for this project, multiple dashboards focused on just like one area. So for example, here is the workforce development dashboard. So you'll see the option here is to put anything you want. These are templates in here. You can make it interactive where I can say, now this is pretty interesting. Who's 78? See who they are and then go to their member profile. So these interactive ways of letting people engage with the data has been a really successful way that we've been able to say, thank you, you're part of this. here's data, and let's make sure that you have access to it as well. For the member profiles, it's kind of a big thank you to people when they answer a survey, it goes into a black hole. So one of our users said, is there anything we can give them back? So what we know is that when an organization gets data back, they're applying for grants, they're trying to show their partnerships and community. So they can use these data for that, for their annual reports, or just to explore. So here I'm in, sorry to go so fast, the Arvada chambers, but I can see who they're connected to and what they do together. And then I can say, great, now I want to go look at that member. So these are features that can be public facing or not. And so it's just part of that work where you can really engage and try to build capacity in the community while doing the work. So Jenny, I'm going to skip through to the very end so we can get to some of our questions and answers. We will just show you that what we do is we try to have folks have access to this, like through presentations or reports and things like that. All right, so we're going to open Q&A, but while we do that, we're going to look through the questions. We have one more part of the Mentimeter, which is what other pain points are you experiencing? So we tried to put together the 4 that we see the most, but we also want to know like what we can address and share in the future. So what did we miss? So go ahead if you have the energy to do this one. I'm going to go ahead and get out of there, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't work unless I go into my present mode. So we'll see if folks have that. If it's not working, if someone could let me know on my team, that would be amazing. And while that is going on, I'm going to look through some of our questions. And Jenny, you can help me answer them. I saw that the screen is displaying too big to capture the QR code. Okay, I know exactly what you mean, but in the chat, Alex, can you copy the link and code again and put it back in there for me? So folks who came in late or didn't see that will have that. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you for putting stuff in. So I'm just going to go through some of these while that's getting done. Sorry, I'm going back so far. We always get the question about how people can maintain their data. What some of our users do is we create like a data capture form with the data that we want people to put in there. We can create new ones over time. And so we just share that with them, and then they are able to put their data in there. So it can build up the database. We do not refer to this as a resource database where we're trying to like track the number of beds available for a community at one time. This is a partnership database. So being able to maintain the data is less urgent in a partnership data on like a daily basis, but and others will do like an annual survey or a survey after every meeting. So you can manage when and how you want people to put data back in there. See, we will be sharing the slides. I think Jenny might have answered a lot of these right in here. I'll just read some of them out. How do you integrate different entities like individual people contributing, traditional organizations with hierarchical structures, and ways to collaborate networks of movements within more fluidity? I will just say this concept of who you include and how you describe them is the hardest thing. We call it bounding, and we agree that it's always super complex. Something I like to share with folks is that there is the ability to choose like organizations and then people, or people within organizations. The technology doesn't care. It's going to let you put anything you want in there. How you structure it, though, matters a lot for sense making. And so what we do is we tend to focus at the organizational level, and our users do as well. I always say, like, imagine you have Habitat for Humanity and you have the executive director. We know that they're an important part of it, but if you're tracking the relationship with Habitat over time, do you want the node to be Habitat or do you want it to be the executive director? Because if it's the executive director, then when she moves to another organization, we're actually tracking her move. So that's one way we've helped people kind of make sense of what they want to put in there. But if we want to have multiple, like a hierarchy or multiple programs in an organization, we'll just put like Habitat for Humanity /membership. keep this in mind. If you're going to ask people to answer questions, they need to understand what you're asking them to answer. So the node has to be labeled in a way that they can answer it. So two nodes cannot be labeled the same because then they'll think they won't know the difference. So it's a very complicated question. And what we have always said is that in the thousands of times that we've done this, we've always been successful. So there's lots of hope for being able to figure that out and then get it in there. Okay, I'll answer this. What are the minimum number of network members for which this level of detail would be useful? Just putting in the member list, I would say start with one. To collect the information about the relational data, I think I've seen ones as small as 6 and be really useful. There is no science to say that, but I think intuitively we might know when it's kind of too small. Things like that. Okay. Jenny, are there any other questions we should read out loud? The while you're coming on.
Sorry, I'm having issues turning my audio on. I think we've got most of them.
I see like this question, does the system create the roles of the members or do I create them? You create the categories. But again, we have lots of resources and guidance. Like primary sector is one that we recommend for every single data set. We also sometimes just do sector. So if they're government, nonprofit, or private sector is a really great way to kind of see the world. Okay, so we will end here with other pain points and challenges. So getting going. Here. Don't we know that? Okay, qualifying the requested information, ensuring consistency with data. I won't read through them all because I think that, oops, sorry about that. I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. I was going to see if I could scroll down. I'll just do it from here. There we go. All right, so I won't read through all of these. We'll share them back with folks. We want to have a conversation. You'll probably see that our tone in this work is that more is not always better, but we are huge believers in networking and collaboration and the power of that. So our hope is to balance that desire to do so much of this, the very beautiful parts of the colors and network maps of and action of connecting with the realities of constrained resources and people who are just overwhelmed with a lot to do. So we'll continue trying to tackle this issue with you all. The last thing that I will just say here is there are some ways to stay engaged. If you have a second in the last minute here in the chat, if you want to let us know if there's other topics you want to see us cover, let us know. What we're going to do is another webinar in September on capturing data. So to go a little bit deeper into how to get that data from people, especially questions to ask and how do you know you're asking the right questions. And you can just come in and use the system on your own as a place to store your members. And we also love to talk to you about this. So one of our missions is just to share the good news of network science. And we would love to be thought leaders or thought partners, with you in this work. So thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter. We create are really hopeful will be shared. So thanks so much. We will look forward to hearing from you all soon, and we'll have a follow-up with some resources for you.